Good day, everyone. This is the Sound Archives, and I am your host, Christian Maiorino. So this is the first episode that I've put up now in a few weeks. Last one was the concert review of Blue Oyster Cult at the Palace Theater in Waterbury, Connecticut. So if you didn't check out that concert review video, please do. It seemed like it got quite a few views, and also picked up quite a few new subscribers. After posting that video. So thank you very much to those who viewed it, commented on it, and have subscribed to the channel. So today's episode is going to focus on one of my favorite bands. That would be Judas Priest, and I'm going to be doing an album ranking here. So basically, what I'm going to do is go through all 18 studio albums put out by Judas Priest and rank them in order, my order of what I think my least favorite Priest album to my favorite Priest album. I know there's a ton of these on YouTube, a ton of other people out there who have done these types of videos, but they're always fun. I enjoy watching other ones, and I want to kind of give my own stab at it right here. So kind of as a preface here, I don't own I own most of the Priest catalog. The only two albums that I do not own in any format, vinyl, CD, digital, what have you, are the two Ripper Owens albums. But I have listened to them enough to, I think, give my feedback here and my opinion. So without further ado, I'm gonna start with my least favorite Judas Priest album. And coming in at the bottom, number 18, is this one, 2001's Demolition. So this was the second album that Priest did with Ripper Owens on vocals. The album, I mean, it's heavy, but it has more of a new metal tinge type to it, which I don't really like that much. And none of the songs in this album I really like that much at all. I can't say there's not one song on here that I could say I really enjoyed at all. Again, too, I think Ripper Owens on vocals, I think he's a fine vocalist, but I think just, Rob Halford's voice is just so iconic and so definitive with the Priest sound. It's very, very difficult hearing Judas Priest with a different singer, no matter how good the guy is. So there's that as well. Next up, coming in at number 17 is, bring it up on my phone, this abomination right here. I don't think you could see it that well. Be Nostradamus. This is the one that probably ranks at the bottom of most Priest fans' list, the one that most everyone is would say is their worst album, and honestly it's pretty far down my list as well. Again, I like the opening track, Dawn of Creation, or I think Prophecy is the one. That song's not bad. The rest of it here, and it's 2 CDs worth. It's like they didn't think there was 1 CD worth enough, but they had to do 2 CDs, just, I don't know, just overbloated nonsense, I think. They wanted to try to do a concept album. They did it, and, they tried it. No one liked it, and I guess they kind of moved on from there. So, all right, next up, that was number 17. Number 16 is this album right here, which I own on cassette, but I didn't dig out the cassette. And I really wish these would come in a little bit more clearly here on the video, but I could throw in the album covers there. It's this one, Ram It Down, which came out in 1988. Now this one, it starts off so promising. You get the title track right there at the beginning with Halford's scream, and then just, the guitar coming in. Ram It Down is a killer song. One of the best opening tracks on any Priest album. And after that, you got the song Heavy Metal, which starts out with this, this pretty sick, guitar intro. Song's all right. After that, this thing just completely falls off the rails. Love Zone, that song sucks. Come and Get It, not that good. Hard as Iron, okay. Blood Red Skies, that's the one that, I know they played that in a couple recent set lists. There's a lot of Priest fans who, swear by that song. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Blood Red Skies. I'm a Rocker. Johnny Be Good, fucking awful. Don't know why Priest felt like they had to cover it. Not that good. Love You to Death and Monsters of Rock. I don't know. This album was supposed to be their heavy album after Turbo. But honestly, as you can see right here, this ranks lower for me. Aside from the first one or two songs, the rest of the album really isn't that good. So now coming in at number 16. So next up on my list is Jugulator. I don't have a copy of that one. I'll be honest, Jugulator, I wasn't really into it when it first came out. Like I said before, having another singer in Judas Priest other than Rob Halford just really didn't work for me. But that being said, I think Ripper is a fine vocalist. So it's nothing, certainly not knocking him as far as a singer. But I have listened to Jugulator again, and I'll admit I've kind of warmed up to this one a little bit now. I do think there's some good songs on there. I like Burn in Hell. It's got kind of that long intro to it, but it's still good. It's still really good. Bullet Train's a pretty good song. And the one that a lot of Priest fans seem to gravitate towards, Cathedral Spires, I think is a great song off of that album. Overall, the rest of it isn't bad. I don't think it's great, but it's not bad. So that's that one. So next up, after Jugulator, next up on my list is... Oops, let's bring it up. So I can show it right here. And it's also one of the LPs right behind me right here. That would be A Rolla. The debut Judas Priest album, which came out in 1974. So this one, overall, I think it's a pretty good record. It's Priest, but it's not quite Priest. What I mean by that is that I don't think they really kind of defined their sound yet on this album. It's more kind of a hard rock, kind of bluesy sound, though it is doomy in spots, but it doesn't quite have the classic Priest sound yet. That being said, there are some good songs. I like the title track, A Rolla. That's got a catchy riff to that one. Deep Freeze, Winter Retreat, Never Satisfied, another really good song. Dying to Meet You, I like that track a lot as well. Overall, it's good. Not great, but it's good. Not a bad start to their career, but of course, I think what they've done, most of what they've done after that is a lot better. So, all right, after A Rolla, next up on my list is this album right here, Turbo. So, this is one that ranks pretty low, I think, on a lot of people's lists. A lot of fans really didn't like this album because they went, they strayed away from their kind of classic sound and did a more kind of commercial, glammed up stop version of Priest right here. But, that being said, I think it's still kind of a fun album. There are a couple really good songs. I like the title track, Turbo Lover. Out in the Cold is a great song. I love that one. The rest of it isn't bad. Locked In is all right. Private Property is all right. Parental Guidance, Rock You Around the World. Those two are kind of cheesy, as well as the rest of the album. Wild Nights, Hot and Crazy Days, Hot for Love, and Reckless is a pretty good song too. I don't know. Sometimes when when the mood strikes it, I like this album a real lot, but it's certainly not the worst Priest album, in my opinion. But certainly not the best either. So that's why it ranks on my list where it does. So, coming up next after Turbo, coming in at number 12 for me is... I do not own a physical copy of this one. I do have a digital copy, of course. Not sure how well that's going to come in. That would be this record, Redeemer of Souls, from 2014. One of the things that Priest has seemed to do throughout their whole career is, they put out a shitty album, but they always seem to make up for it with the next album. And case in point right here, Redeemer of Souls. I mean, follows Nostradamus after 2008. This is the first album with Richie Faulkner as a full member of the band, contributing, and it's a pretty good album. I consider it to be Priest's kind of attempt at doing like a Viking metal, if you will. Of course, they have the track on here, Halls of Valhalla, but then there's also, other songs right here that kind of have, I don't want to say power metal, but, you have Juggernaut, a good song, Redeemer of Souls, Sword of Damocles, March of the Damned, also really good. Battle Cry, that's a killer song. The rest at Metalizer, pretty good. It's, all in all, it's a pretty good album. They definitely redeemed themselves, so to speak, I think, after Nostradamus with this one. I think the only downside about this album, I wouldn't really consider a downside, is I think the record that came out after, I think is a lot better than this one even, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the list. So, coming up next at number 11 will be this album right here, 2005's Angel of Retribution. I dug this album a lot when it came out. Opens with Judas Rising, killer song, Deal with the Devil, also really good. Revolution, Demonizer, Hellrider. And you got a couple, slower songs on here like Angel and Eulogy. Last track is pretty long and bloated, Loch Ness. I think that was kind of almost predicting what was to come with Nostradamus. But this album overall really good. I was happy when it came out. It was the first one where the first new album they did with Rob Halford back in the band, and it's a good one. So now that was number 11. Now we're starting to get into the top 10, where I consider the more classic stuff right here. And actually, if you don't mind, before I do that, I'm just going to take a sip of my drink right here. Having a nice gin and tonic during this holiday season. And next up, coming in, number 10, is this album right here, Point of Entry. This is another one that generally doesn't rank as high from a lot of Priest fans. But my honest opinion on Point of Entry, I think it's got the songs on here that are good are awesome, stone cold Priest classics. Heading Out to the Highway, amazing. Hot Rockin', another awesome song. Desert Plains, another great one. Those are probably the strongest tracks off of this one. Solar Angels is also another really good song. For me, the rest of this album is kind of so-so. The other songs, they're okay, but they're not great. This is probably the first album that Priest put out that there was maybe a little bit of a downgrade in quality, maybe compared to what came before it. But, it's still, like I said, it's still a top 10 Priest album for me. And I think the stronger tracks on this one definitely, I think, carry the album as opposed to the weaker songs. So, number 10, Point of Entry. Number 9 for me is going to be this monster of an album right here, Firepower. This was the most recent studio album from Judas Priest, the second one with Richie Faulkner on guitar. And I think like Redeemer of Souls, like he showed on that album, and especially this one, he really, I think, kind of brought some new life to the band. And, it was kind of sad to hear a couple months ago he had the issue with his heart. It bummed me out because I was gonna go see Priest back in October, but that was before that happened, so the date got postponed. I believe it's April now. I think I got to double check that. So I'm glad that Richie, that at least he seems to have gotten better from that, and they'll be out on the road again. But anyway, now going back to the album, Firepower. I mean, he got killer title track there opening up. Lightning Strikes, another great song. Evil Never Dies, Necromancer, Children of the Sun. What are some other ones I like under this? Flamethrower I like a lot. Spectre, Trader's Gate. A lot of really great songs. I wouldn't say there's any songs I really dislike on here. I just listed off a bunch of the ones that I really like. But this is definitely a latter-day classic from the band. And it's just so great when you see, one of these just iconic heavy metal bands still putting out, classic albums after all these years. And it stands up there with the best of them. That's why it makes it into my top 10, reaching in at number 9. So next up here, after Firepower, coming in at number 8, this classic right here, British Steel. This came out in 1980. Of course, get the back cover right there. This was probably the album, I guess, that you could say catapulted Priest into the mainstream. Of course, Living After Midnight. That song gets played to death on a lot of the classic rock radio stations. But of course, you've also got Breaking the Law. Another classic Priest song, or another, big hit. But then, of course, you got Rapid Fire, got Metal Gods, Grinder, all classics. You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise, The Rage, Steeler, and even United. United's an okay song. I know a lot of people don't like that song. I think it's all right. But top to bottom, great album. It probably ranks number 1 for a lot of people. Doesn't rank number 1 for me, but it's pretty high up there. When I started going through all these albums here, deciding which ones I liked the best and the least, my top favorite was easy. The bottom was pretty easy, but everything in the middle here is kind of tough to decide how to rank them. But anyway, that comes in at number 8 for me, British Steel. Coming in at number 7. This classic right here, 1977, Sin After Sin. Another classic Priest right here. Of course, you got the kind of gothic album cover right here, and then the back there with the skull and all that. Building on what they had done before it, after Sad Wings. Of course, you got the killer opening track, Sinner. You got the Joan Baez cover, Diamonds and Rust, another awesome song. Starbreaker, another awesome one. Dissident Aggressor, other one of my favorites off of here. Let Us Pray, Call for the Priest, Here Come the Tears. Every song here is pretty good. Even the slower one, Last Rose of Summer. I like that song too. I like everything off of this one. This, of course, was produced by Roger Glover from Deep Purple fame, and I believe it was I had on VHS, so I think I still have the VHS, but obviously I haven't watched it in many years. They Priest put out the Metal Years 73 to 93, and which kind of chronicled all the albums for the band up to that point, and they had an interview in there with Roger Glover saying that when they were recording this album, KK's in the studio throwing shapes. He's doing, like this thing like he does on stage. And, he's commenting, he thought it was funny. It's like, why are you in the studio acting like you're on stage? And, KK responds, it's like, well, hey, that's how the music, moves me, and that's just what I feel like doing when I play. So, anyway, Sin After Sin, number 7. Which now we come into number 6. Another iconic Priest album right here, Hellbent for Leather. Came out 1979 in the U.S. I guess it came out in 78 in the U.K. But this is the album here where they, at least the time when this came out, that's where they started doing the whole leather and chains type image. This is the one where Halford starts riding the Harley on stage for, of course, the title track, Hellbent for Leather. But there's so many other classics on here. Delivering the Goods, Green Manalishi, of course, another cover song. It's actually a Fleetwood Mac cover. Killing Machine, Running Wild, Rock Forever. There's even a couple more. I think compared to the couple of albums that came before this, it seemed like they were trying to go a little bit more commercial on this, I think, with songs like Evening Star and Take on the World. But overall, killer album, classic. So that came in at number 6. So now we're in the top 5. So this is the cream of the crop for Judas Priest. So for me, my number 5, what's it going to be? This one right here. Painkiller. Came out in 1990. So as I was saying a few moments ago, where Priest always kind of seemed to follow up shitty albums with strong ones. So in 1988 and even 86, you had Turbo. A lot of people didn't like that. Ram It Down came out in 88. It was supposed to be Priest coming back to be heavy, but somehow it was just an even shittier record. They redeemed themselves with this one big time. On this one, you had Scott Travis coming in on drums, replacing Dave Holland, the pedophile guy. I mean, he just, right away in the opening track, Painkiller, he just makes a statement right away. We have a new drummer. Here he is. Awesome. So the title track is, of course, iconic. Killer guitar solo right there in the middle. Halford just screaming like a banshee all throughout. Every song on here is freaking awesome. Hell Patrol, All Guns Blazing, Leather Rebel, Metal Meltdown, Nightcrawler, Between the Hammer and the Anvil, Touch of Evil. The only kind of slower song on here, but still really good. Battle Hymn and One Shot at Glory. I mean, this is Judas Priest playing at 11 throughout. Probably their heaviest album. I think most people would agree with that. I think that this coming out in 1990, the metal scene was different in 1990 than it was in, the early 80s or the late 70s when Priests were kind of in their, more formative stage. They were keeping up with younger bands on this one, and they showed them how too with this one, I think. Killer album. Love it. Alright, so that was number 5. Number 4, we have another Stone Cold Priest classic right here. Screaming for Vengeance, which I also got an LP right behind me. But you can't see it because my head's blocking it. Of course, this one you got probably their biggest hit song with You've Got Another Thing Coming, which they always play for the encore of all their shows, but you got probably their most iconic opening track with the Hellion and Electric Eye, which I think is their best album opener, I think, and also I think their best show opener. But then you got other Riding on the Wind, another killer song, Bloodstone, Take These Chains, all killer songs. Pain and Pleasure, that's the only song on here I don't really like. Title track, Screaming for Vengeance, awesome. Of course, you got Another Thing Coming, Fever, and then closing the album, Devil's Child. Awesome. Okay, so now we got number 3. So what do we got left here? Well, there aren't that many. Number 3 for me is this one right here, Sad Wings of Destiny. So, this is the album right here where, this is their second album, 1976, but I think this is where Priest became Priest, where Rock a Rolla, and there's still a little bit of the sound that they had on Rock a Rolla, which is more of the hard rock, kind of bluesy. Here they were moving away towards that, and they were moving really into what their classic sound is. Songs like The Ripper, Tyrant, Genocide, Island of Domination. That's classic Priest right there. And of course, you got the monster epic on here, Victim of Changes, Killer Song. You got other good songs here, Dreamer, Deceiver, and Deceiver. Those are good. Then you gotta have the song Epitaph, which is kind of a strange one on here. Doesn't seem to really fit in with the rest of the album, but it ain't bad. It's just top to bottom, great album. Many of these songs, of course, are made on Unleashed in the East. Some people might like those versions better. I don't know. I still tend to gravitate more towards the studio albums than live albums. But anyway, regardless, killer album. So now we're almost at the very top here. Almost there. So coming in at number 2 is this one. Stained Class. Came out in 1978. So this album right here was the first one, of course, to feature the classic Judas Priest logo right there. That kind of, I don't know, razor blade image. I don't know what you call it right there. Phenomenal album. This is the first one. They in the early 70s, Priest seemed to be shuffling a lot of different drums. Each studio album up to this point, they had a different drummer. And even on Sin After Sin, I think Simon Phillips is the drummer on that. He was just filling in for the studio. They didn't even have a replacement at that point. But eventually, he had Les Binks come in on this. He's a phenomenal drummer, and I think his drumming, I think coming into Priest, I think perfected their sound. What they started with on Sad Wings of Destiny, where they really kind of found the classic sound. Of course, they continued with Sin After Sin, and I think on this album they perfected the sound on this one. I mean, you got classic like Exciter, White Heat, Red Hot, Saints in Hell, Savage, Beyond the Realms of Death, the title track, Better by You, Better Than Me, the song that supposedly some kids tried to kill themselves listening to. And it's also a cover song, by the way. I've never actually heard the original, but that one's a cover. It was great a couple of years ago to see Priest in concert do Saints in Hell live. That was a real treat. Not a song I would have expected them to play, but definitely awesome. But top to bottom, I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. In my opinion, there's obviously only one album that we haven't gotten to yet that I like a little bit better. But we'll get to that one right now. So now the number 1 Priest album, or on my list, my personal favorite, is the one right behind me on LP, and that would be Defenders of the Faith. I know that one probably ranks fairly high on a lot of people's lists. Well, of course, I have the digital version right here, but so many classics. I mean, it opens up with Free Will Burning, just classic ripping metal right there. And of course, Jawbreaker, another classic. Rock Hard, Ride Free, and The Sentinel. I think just those songs right there. I mean, I get goosebumps listening to those every single time. And then, of course, you get second half of the album is also really good, too. Love Bites, Eat Me Alive. That was the song the PMRC didn't like in the 80s. Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, another great song. Night Comes Down, a little bit more of a ballad type song, but I like it. And then closing out the album, you have Heavy Duty and Defenders of the Faith, which, I know a lot of people who don't like, the last track on the album. I still think it's an all right song, but I think the rest of the album is just so good. It's like they didn't have to do a great song for the last album. They could just kind of, coast it out there at the end. But Defenders of the Faith is definitely has a special place in my heart because it was the first Judas Priest album I ever bought, and it was actually this physical LP right behind me. I bought that at a record store. Actually Merle's Record Rack in Wallingford, Connecticut. They've long gone out of business, but at the time I bought that in the mid 90s, they were one of the few places that was selling used LPs, and at that time it was like super cheap, especially to find like a lot of these old like 80s metal albums. I could tell you what I bought for that. $2.98 is what I bought for this album right here back in, 1995-ish. Guarantee it's a lot more expensive now to buy that, even that used vinyl today. But anyway, I had a turntable, put it home, and I was just immediately just enamored with that record. And it definitely, it opened the floodgates, of course, for getting, for going back and getting all the other Priest albums, and also just kind of getting into the more classic and traditional heavy metal in general. So that's why that album is my number one. So that's that. That's my album ranking. So what I'd really like to hear is in your comments below, let me know what your favorite Priest albums are. I'm sure everyone has different opinions and probably has a list different than mine, which is fine. Would love to hear how you would rank all the studio albums from Judas Priest. So with that, I hope to keep more videos coming on the channel. We're closing out 2021 here, going into 2022. So I hope you stick around and check out anything new that I got coming up. And until then, Happy New Year and keep rocking.